To summarize on the things just for your benefit, Joe, what we've been working on, a couple of major initiatives, one being the Solarize Newmarket campaign, where the committee and the town council approved having Revision Energy on board to help drive the process to our goal. We set it just sort of a general goal of trying to double the installed capacity of residential solar in Newmarket over the course of the next year. That process is somewhat stalled. I tried reaching out to Revision again today and basically didn't get through to them. So all I can say is it's been a frustrating process all the way around. They're probably frustrated with us. I'm frustrated with them. We ended up having I think part of the expectation was that we would have more volunteer members on the committee that would be out in the community, knocking on doors, rallying people to meetings, and whatever it is, the combination of circumstances from COVID, the inability to meet in groups, all of that is sort of put a damper on the efforts. So most of that effort is switched to Revision Energy employees and sales staff being able to respond and reach out to Newmarket residents that might want to move forward on a residential solar initiative. So I don't have any current statistics. I asked them again today to try to get back to me. They were sharing a spreadsheet with sort of lead generation, but that hasn't been updated for me in a while, so I'm trying to find out what's going on with that. And that's all I have to report on that.
Well, and this is probably a couple months old, so I don't know where we're at with that, but I know that I had contact with Revision, and they were frustrated not getting communication back from the town. I think maybe part of that frustration was also thinking that they'd be on meetings, but us not having quorums.
Right.
I think that the chair of the town council, during that town council meeting, I came to a town council meeting and I made a public statement of we approved them to do this job for us, and they are not getting the tools to do the job. And
well, I don't think there was never a promise that we would be giving them tools. I think the expectation was they would be helping and giving us tools.
I apologize for my imprecise language. By giving them tools, I don't mean actual resources. What I mean is permission to put up a banner, permission to put up signs, that advertising on the town Facebook page, in the newsletter, things like that.
Right.
So it wasn't, they fully expected their own resources to go into it, but that was what I had heard from them. I came to the town council. I was assured that the whatever the miscommunication was would be addressed and fixed. And I saw some signs go up, but I haven't heard anything since.
Yeah, some flyers went out, got posted around town, in the library, some other places. I had posted several ads, linking back. Revision did create a lead site where people could contact them that were interested. So that's been out there, but again, sort of the follow-up process has been very incomplete.
Okay. Two things. One, they did do a web type presentation.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, yeah, I presented on that. I forgot that.
Yeah, no, we had a web presentation. It was well attended. We had about 40 people. That's kind of where we left off, and they had sent out meeting notices after that. We posted additional banners, and then things have kind of stalled since then. And part of that was us not just, we haven't had any meetings. Yeah.
Well, and as I was saying, when I came to the town council that day, the chair of the town council said, oh, there was a volunteer for Revision at the previous meetings, but she was referring to you. Because
I had a student that came in. I met with him. I spent a lot of time with him, and he was starting to go through the lead stuff, and he was very energetic and engaged and involved. And I was pretty encouraged that we were going to start making some process with his help. But the last I heard from him too is he was busy with his own, coursework and educational things.
Do you have contacts for Revision Energy?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
I'll share all of that with you.
Okay, all right.
And I was going to say I'm happy to reach out to them as well and copy
Yeah.
everybody.
Would it
And
be helpful if, like, for next month, that they come to the meeting and we just kind of like have a roundtable, say, okay, you know, what's
What do you
going
need?
on? What do you need? What do you need me to do on the town council side? I
Right.
don't guarantee I'll get
Right, well, because, you know, again, the window of opportunity it has been, you know, I think the expectation was that we would be getting inquiries fielded up through now, like going into, you know, April, May, and then the window starts to close because they're lining up work. And I know revision has been you know, one of the things that I think has been troublesome for me is revision has been so busy on large projects and other things, not just in New Hampshire, but in Maine and in Massachusetts and in states that are going gung-ho. Let's face it, New Hampshire's a laggard on the energy and solar front.
Indeed.
So we're just not getting as much attention or help in New Hampshire as a state. I just think revision has been, you know, I see them putting up ads that they need to hire people. They're trying to hire more staff. So I guess good for them that they're busy, but bad for Newmarket because they're not busy enough. If they, you know, no one's lighting a fire under them to generate new business. They
Right.
seem to have enough business to keep them busy is what I'm saying.
Right.
Which is a concern to me, which, you know.
No, I think it's a good idea to have them basically presentation 2.0 like they came and presented to us before. Okay, where are we? What are the plans?
Right.
What are the missing pieces to the puzzle here?
Right.
Why aren't we
I
getting
would
this done?
support that, and again, I'll follow up after the meeting. The other thing that I have to check on, I don't know how many of our actual meeting notes have been posted to the town website. I usually try to send them off to Wendy, but we haven't had a good sort of meeting note taker. You know, we lost a couple of our committee members who were doing a great job of writing down all the meeting notes.
Well, they have Pat, forget her last name, but she'll take the recordings and
write some notes up.
Right up, yeah, that's fine.
That would be great if that could help.
That'd be
I'll
excellent.
see if I can follow up on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the Solarize campaign. Like I said, that's somewhat in limbo. I wish I had more numbers to share with you right now, but I don't. And like I said, I reached out to Revision again this week, and I haven't heard back. So that's where that is. The other important project that we've been trying to move forward on is Newmarket joined the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. And again, that's been a fledgling effort because as that was happening, they had not actually formed into a full nonprofit corporation yet. But now that has happened. They have multiple municipal members. They've formed a board. And I think they just hired Henry as a staff person. So they're starting to actually gel as an organization. Our follow-up mission here in Newmarket to support that effort was to create something called the Energy Aggregation Plan, which was basically sort of part of that is our goals and objectives to move towards a clean renewable energy future and some statistics on energy consumption patterns in Newmarket. I spent a lot of time on that.
You did.
And I'm still working on that, so I'm not going to abandon that effort, but I will have additional things that I can feed to new committee members through other work I'm doing outside of the committee on that.
And just to clarify for Joe, but maybe somewhat for myself, because this has been so long, the idea is that we would join together with other towns and generate energy that we would all share.
Right. Well, are you familiar with Community Power Coalition at all? So basically what it is, it's a consortium of municipalities that have agreed, and what they are going to do as an entity is be looking at energy consumption patterns, and ultimately they become an energy broker. So they will be working to provide towns, just like now you can choose who you want to buy your electricity from, right? and Eversource is the default supplier in Newmarket, but you can go to a different third-party supplier if you so choose. And basically, Community Power Coalition is going to be one of those entities that once they have, more of the sort of background organization of what they're doing together, Newmarket will be able to look at the figures that Community Power Coalition will bring to the table as far as being a broker of energy supply. And that may or may not be at less money. So, for example, the idea is to have some choice. So we know that Eversource's rates are going up. Eversource, has to, petition to anytime they want to do a rate increase. Community Power Coalition may have a basket of energy services. So if Newmarket does decide as a community that they want to make a commitment to, energy independence and clean renewable energy and make clean renewable energy a priority, they'll have more options open to them to do that.
So
at what cost is not known yet.
Yeah. So Community Power Coalition, they're sourcing their energy from clean sources. Is that their objective?
They
or
will
just
have the ability to, they will have their ability to pool the purchasing power of multiple communities to enter into both short and long-term contracts with other entities to buy power. Now that could be a large solar array in the town, right? So that eventually part of the goal is, I know Newmarket, and I think before the town council have in the budget committee was at least one solar project that's being contemplated in town.
Down by the, Young's Lane, whatever it is
Yeah.
there.
I think there's a couple, and one up by on the border up by off of Route 108, heading into Newfields. Where the storage system is, where that landlocked parcel is. It's been before the planning board several times.
So that's
along the railroad tracks. Yeah.
So that's what I was going to say, because you're focused very much on the fact that they're a broker, and that's, they're not really established yet, but that's kind of like the first step. But the way it was presented to us, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the eventual goal is for these towns to go in together, make a solar farm or whatever it is,
Right.
and generate clean energy that then all those towns would share. So whether that's in one project or multiple projects that are in different locations.
Right. So part of one of the things I was working on, I actually have been looking at all of the existing, sort of documenting all the existing residential solar projects in Newmarket. And I've also done the aggregation. We actually made a request to Eversource for historical electricity consumption figures, which we received and I put together, so I can share those with you. I think it's time to go back to Eversource and ask for an additional year of data, since it's been a year since we've had that, so that we basically, one of the goals, and this is something that Community Power Coalition is also moving forward with, is they're trying to create a data warehouse where all the utility companies will be required to make those types of consumption, residential, commercial, by rate class, so residential, industrial, street lighting, commercial, and those various rate categories, make that consumption data available to the towns freely and easily through a standardized data warehouse.
There was some difficulty in getting that information from them, and I just want to take a second to acknowledge how much work Peter's put into this, because I think above anybody else on the committee, he put in efforts.
Is that something that the legislature's part?
Well,
could,
but
it could be a bill.
There are bills in front of the legislature now.
But specifically to mandate that they provide that information freely.
Right.
I mean, in theory, as long as the personal information were, detached from the data, they should be able to provide it publicly.
One of the better sources of that is the Clean Energy, New Hampshire Clean Energy Program, another nonprofit. They're working to, there's several dockets going in front of the Public Utility Commission right now related to all of these topics, including rate increases. So for me, I think it's very important that Newmarket, the Budget Committee, the Town Council, everybody be aware of what's going on in the electricity distribution space and how much it costs. One of my goals that I would
Say I know.
well, one of the goals that I would still like to do, and that I'm gonna talk to Steve and others, because I'm trying to build some things that allow towns to do that, is there's no reason we shouldn't be able to get energy consumption data at the meter level. Like, I want to see every electric bill that Newmarket pays as a town, right? There's an electric bill for this building.
For every house.
There's
and
one
every
for
residential
DPW,
unit.
right? So basically, we want to have all those bills and all the information behind that. Just like when you get your, who do you use? Eversource?
Eversource,
Right.
yeah.
When you go to Eversource and you get your bill, you can go in and see your historical data month by month. Well, what I'm trying to do is also create a clearinghouse where Newmarket can also have that data. Again, right now, there's a privacy issue, right? Unless you wanted to share your personal data, Newmarket can't come and look at your meter or your usage. But we can look at aggregate data, which is the data that we got. So we know overall what the residential electricity consumption is. Eversource provided us with those figures. So we can sort of deduce what some of those costs are, and then we can look at that over time. And part of that will be so that the decision makers within the town can say, okay, here's how much we paid for electricity before, here's how much we're paying for electricity now. There's dockets in front of the utility commission to increase those rates. For the most part, it's going up. Here's how much we're going to pay in the future, and then insert Community Power Coalition into that process, and now we have another party that we can talk to about how are you going to help us with that cost structure. And one of the other things that the town then brings to the table, because they are part of a bigger pool of municipalities, is if you do want to go forward with financing larger clean renewable energy projects like a large solar array, right now those have been capped at a certain size of what you're eligible for, and the whole thing behind that, is, like I said, New Hampshire's lagged behind on creative financing of those types of projects, but those will be able to come forward too, and you'll have a better financial understanding of why would Newmarket want to invest in those things, what's the short and long-term payback periods. So that's where that whole thing is going, is basically to give municipalities more choice in their both purchase of electricity and, like I said, the other side of that is the production side. It's not just consumption. It's also being able to say, how much energy are we producing?
Well, that's what I've been wanting
Right?
to, that's what I've been waiting to say, is
Right.
that for me, that data that you've been gathering for so long is most useful in the idea of that eventual energy generation. How much have we used? How much are we using? What is the trajectory of that? How much are we going to have to generate? And how much is that going to have to increase over time? In order for any kind of generation project, we'll need to know what Newmarket's share of that
Right.
that is going to be. And hopefully, that we go in knowing how much that would have cost if we were with Eversource,
Right.
and how we can aim for more affordable levels.
Right. And so, one of the things, again, what I'm trying to do is, by looking at all of the existing installed residential solar projects in Newmarket, we'll be able to quantify to say, well, here's how much approximate energy they're able to generate, that's another, we have an energy portfolio in town, basically, is how much do we consume in these different rate classes. So, we're able to, ideally, again, if we set some goals that Newmarket wants to have a fully clean, renewable energy portfolio, well, those residential households that have done that now, we can quantify how much they're actually starting to contribute to our reducing sort of our, adding to our production capacity, for example, and not just our consumption statistics.
So, that's a lot.
It's a real lot. It's a lot. And the hardest thing is
it's a
trying
moving target too.
to decipher electric rates and the legal framework around which the Public Utilities Commission and the utility distribution companies are operating is a hair-pulling exercise at best. But, we're doing it. And Community Power Coalition is working on it. So Newmarket has 2 representatives to the Community Power Coalition, and that's Steve and Tony right now. So they are I think the way it's structured is they're voting members as part of that. But there's no commitment really on Newmarket's part yet until they start staffing up, and then they will be asking towns are going to have to financially contribute to helping get the Community Power Coalition staffed and up and running and able to actually get to the point where they can negotiate these types of contracts on behalf of their members.
Is it an option for, say, like the town to give them land, or say the dam here, say, hey, we got the dam here.
In kind.
If you can.
Yeah, I don't
put in a
think I don't think
generator.
Community Power Coalition, they're not going to be owning energy projects. I don't think. Their role is just sort of the middle person in coordinating.
Oh,
that.
that's not what, that was not my understanding from the presentation that we were given.
Really?
Yeah, that my understanding, I could be wrong, it was a very long time ago now, but my understanding was that clearly that was their eventual aim, was to do energy generation, not just being a broker.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Which to me was the most exciting thing, because we can't necessarily have the ideal sources to choose from for them to broker, but if we all go together as a coalition of towns and create these projects to serve us all, I think that's a really exciting
Right.
idea.
So
But it's a long way
Right.
down.
So anyway, getting back to what the next thing, the next task was on this committee's agenda, was to create the data aggregation plan. So working with, looking at what some of there's a few towns that have already done that. I think Hanover, Lebanon, several towns. I've put together some of those, and I can provide notes so that they've already created sort of templates for what an energy aggregation plan looks like.
But they don't have the collection method yet. Is that true?
No,
Or
so-
they have an idea what they want to see, but they don't know how they're going to get there?
Yeah, no, well, one step in that was to get historical consumption patterns from the utilities.
Okay.
We did that. So that's the first part that feeds that. So we do have some basic numbers. That should be an ongoing process. So really, it's probably time to put in another request for that. And that needs to go out. I think that went out on letterhead from Steve last time to Eversource, because there's a lot of pushback from the utility companies too to provide that. So the tug of war that's going on right now is the towns are saying, we want this data. This data should be easily and readily available to us. And the utility companies, in typical fashion, are saying, oh, that's hard for us to do. If we're going to do that, it's going to take time. It's going to take money. It's going to take resources. So it's just.
So Steve makes the, if I understand, Steve makes a request. He gets the information and he's passing it to you. And you're
Well, that's how
compiling
we did it in the past. Yeah, and basically it's just a, sort of massaging a spreadsheet of historical data. I've made that all available, so I've put that up on a site that I will send you, so that anybody can look at it. You have to log in to see it, but it's also it's public information. Yeah. So that's where that is. So I think that's an important next step. I think the other thing that's going to be key in, again, it all comes down to, just like with this committee, there's only so much time in the day for people to have bandwidth to work on these things outside of their normal livelihoods. And, being a non-governmental agency requiring, right-to-know laws, board meetings, committee meetings. That's created another level of overhead that's a commitment on people's part to stay on top of, you know. So I can see there'll be some challenges ahead for that too. So that's basically where it's at. The other thing is that you might want to talk about,
sure.
you know, Ellen had way back when, a year ago.
Oh, I think even more at this point.
Maybe even longer. Talked about, you know, having passing a recommendation from the Energy and Environment Committee to the Town Council to adopt a resolution that Newmarket was going to join what we call the Ready for 100, which was a commitment by the town saying that our goal and objective is to become a 100% clean, renewable community.
So yeah, I can go into detail. So the Ready for 100 initiative is something it's nationwide, and hundreds of towns, and surprising towns like in the very rural Texas where you wouldn't expect it, have made this commitment. And the commitment is to do 100% renewable energy for electricity for the grid by 2030, and for fuels, heating and transportation fuels, by 2050. There are, I believe, 7 towns in New Hampshire that have adopted this promise. It's, you know, it doesn't have any real teeth behind it, but I think the important piece of it is that we as a town is extremely symbolic. We are showing that this is what we're going to do, and it's also a motivation for us to make a comprehensive energy plan. Where are we going from here? We've known that climate change is a crisis for decades, really. We've known that our energy situation is not sustainable for decades, and yet many governmental levels, not just the town of Newmarket, but certainly the town of Newmarket's included, haven't addressed this in a comprehensive way. Okay, what are we going to do, and how are we going to get to the place where we are sustainable and we're not contributing to climate change? So in that vein, I suggested that we be one of these, the next New Hampshire town to join this. We had some excellent presentations from town managers from towns that have already adopted it, like Hanover, and I can't remember the other town. Is it coming to you?
Hanover. Well,
there were 2 towns, that were present, but like I said, I think there's 7 that have adopted it already. And we voted unanimously to send that to the town council. However, we did not, by my request, did not go ahead and send it to the town council after it passed, because I was concerned that the town council needed more information in order to support it. And so it's been kind of stuck. Now, there was a presentation to the Newmarket business community, and this is actually was from the a Concord city councilor who's also in the Sierra Club, or is the president of the Sierra Club for New Hampshire, and he had presented to the Concord Chamber of Commerce, who then supported their energy initiative to go to 100% renewable, because it turns out this kind of promise is extremely beneficial for the business community as well, and you know, it's not something you would expect. But so the Concord Chamber of Commerce was supportive, and so he offered to do a presentation for the Newmarket business community as well. So there's been that, and I've been waiting for some other volunteers from the Sierra Club and League of Conservation Voters. Oh, he's with League of Conservation Voters, to present this information to the Newmarket Town Council so that they would be inclined to pass it.
And just to be clear, so it's the goal is to generate as much electricity as you're using.
So the goal, so the commitment, it's just a resolution that commits you to saying we as a town are committed to reaching 100% clean energy for the grid by 2030 and for fuels by 2050. And it's the way I wrote the resolution, I was specific in saying we, as part of that, we are going to make a plan. And so whatever we do to make it in that plan is up to us, the town. But it doesn't specify exactly how we're going to get there. Are we going to have our own hydroelectric? Are we going to put on our own solar? It doesn't go into that kind of detail. It's
or are we going to buy energy
Power Coalition
through the Power Coalition or other sources that is, you know, coming from clean renewables? Let's say a huge wind farm plant goes in off the coast of New Hampshire, and all of a sudden there's new pricing that comes to the table. We would be asking Newmarket to take a fiscal look at that, to say how much of, we have historical consumption patterns. We know how much electricity we're consuming. One of the things that we don't have good statistics on is where are we actually buying that power from, and how do we know whether it's what the source of that energy is, right? We don't have a great answer for that right now.
Some of it technically is probably renewable, but probably a small portion.
Right.
Okay.
And so, like I said, some of it we do know. Like we have about 60 residential solar projects in town, so we're able to quantify that and say, theoretically, we know how many solar panels that amounts to, and we know what the capacity of those solar panels are. So the theoretical output of our installed base of residential solar yields X. That was part of our initiative for the Solarize Newmarket project, was, okay, now we want to double that, and we want to double that in a year, so that moves us, X plus Y closer to knowing that the portion of residential energy that we've been drawing from Eversource or whoever is now documentable evidence that we generate that much power from a clean and renewable source, and so on down the line. So the same thing. It would be no different than if we said, one of the big energy consumers in town would be someone like this wastewater treatment plant.
Well,
right?
and I mean, these are all the how we get there, and the idea is that, and I can read I just pulled it up, I can read the resolution that we passed. But the idea is that instead of doing this piecemeal and going, oh, maybe we'll have some auto electric car recharging over here, and maybe we'll do this over here, maybe we'll compost over here, that we have a comprehensive plan so that we're not going into a piecemeal and kind of hodgepodge and putting little pieces together, that we're doing it systematically in a planned fashion so we know exactly what we're doing in order to get to that goal of 100% renewables. So if you will permit me to read this. Whereas the town of Newmarket acknowledges the existential threat that climate change poses to the diversity of all life on our planet, whereas the town of Newmarket understands that it is imperative to take immediate, bold, and systematic action to combat climate change, whereas the town of Newmarket is aware of a movement of municipalities that have committed to transitioning to 100% renewable energy, as well as the many technological options that have become available for reducing its carbon footprint, but has yet to take the necessary step of formulating a comprehensive plan to that end. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Newmarket Town Council that the town of Newmarket shall commit to achieving 100% reliance on renewable and carbon neutral sources of electricity by the year 2030, and 100% reliance on renewable and carbon neutral sources of fuel for heating and transportation by the year 2050. Further, be it resolved that this commitment applies to all town facilities and to the town's leadership in initiatives designed to transition all businesses, institutions, and residences within the town's boundaries to 100% renewable and carbon neutral energy. Further, be it resolved that the town of Newmarket shall, with the advice of the Town Environment and Energy Committee and any other resources it deems necessary, formulate a comprehensive plan determining the best methods and timetables to maximize energy efficiency and transition to alternative energy sources in order to achieve this goal.
I'd like to take a look at that, but would you object to, say, where it says commit, to change that to say set as an objective or something to that effect?
I mean,
it's basically a non-binding.
It's non-binding already, so it's not like anybody, like we hit 2030 and we didn't meet it, so who's going to arrest us, right? But the idea is that we join this community that's done this already, of all these towns that have done it in hundreds across the country. And I think in order to do that, we have to commit. We have to say that we're committed. I look at it like, if I wanted to lose weight, I could say, like, kind of what we're doing now, well, maybe I should eat less carbs, or maybe I should go to the gym, and I could do a little bit here and there. Or I could say, you know what, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. I'm going to do these exercises. I'm going to eat this diet. So it's just being more comprehensive and intentional about it. And that sends a very strong symbolic symbol, I think, a signal to New Hampshire.
Basically, when
the
it
rest of the
says
country.
commit, it said, we're committed to basically reviewing our energy use patterns in town to move that by 2030 to known clean and renewable sources. There's no penalties. There's nothing saying that if you don't make it, you're going to be penalized.
understand, but-
That you can't. You're right. It all because in the end, it's all going to come down to costs, right? It's going to come down to who's negotiating the cost of,
It's something that's wildly popular with
Right.
the citizens of Newmarket.
Yeah.
As I think that all of the
And,
work that
and
we've
there
done
are, obviously, there can't. It has the potential, to drive bigger projects, clean renewable energy projects, and same thing. This is an intertwined process of trying to move not just Newmarket but the state along too. If you look at who we're surrounded, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine are all, charging forward a lot faster than New Hampshire is.
in the news on
And-
how much
and
worse
so
climate
there
change.
There are, economic solutions to all of this. It's not just a, it's basically saying that, when we come in and we're looking at energy contracts in the town, our preferred mode is whenever possible, and our commitment is to try to replace anything that we know that if we are buying power from so-called, quote, dirty sources, is to migrate away from that, because all of those things have long-term environmental costs too, to the town and to the state and to everybody else. And there's lots of other initiatives. So, for example, the state right now is offering money to convert school bus fleets to electric, right? The electrification of automobiles, the electrification of whatever it is.
Was it Chevy
know,
that already said that they're going to
So-
be 100% electric? And
But again, if we're moving to electric, then we're saying, what is the electric sources that are powering all this new electrification, right? We don't want to be we don't want to be refiring the Bow coal power plant just to charge our cars. That's right.
And in the last few months, the news stories have shown the scientists were wrong. It's going to be much worse and much, much sooner,
Yeah.
the impacts of climate change
No,
than we ever had estimated before.
No, we truly are at a crossroads. I mean, the science is clear. So anyway, I'm if that gets wrapped up, we had already agreed as a committee to approve that language, and I think that kind of went on hold was because we wanted to know what else would be important and useful to town council to convince them that this is a resolution worth supporting.
Yeah.
Right?
Again, it's just it's a resolution. It doesn't. There's no no commitment behind it that's going to, like, if we don't make it, what's going to happen. But it's so important to make that. I also use the analogy of a wedding, right? Like, you make a promise, and that's a really important symbol. And I think it's something that it's very clear that the citizens of Newmarket really want. And that was our most well-attended environment and energy meeting ever. We had multiple members of the public in Newmarket in attendance, which has never happened before.
Well, you want to send me that? I'll
Absolutely.
take a look at that again.
How-
I understand
I
you're saying there's
understand
no
the
actual commitment, but when you have the word commitment and commit in there,
Right.
That's a different connotation than saying set as an objective.
But that's what it means, because there is no no policing authority that's going to come after us, and I'm not sure why that's more problematic than, say, entering into, like, Solarize campaign or community power aggregation. Those things are far more complicated than the gesture of saying this is something that's super important and we are finally going to do something about it.
So that's where that is. And so, again, you're, as our new town council representative on here, I guess the hope has always been that we're having a good, two-way channel of communication back to the town council, because we are only an advisory board. We don't make
Yeah.
any decisions.
Absolutely.
We just say, here's our recommendation. These are the kind of things that we, we're taking the pulse of the community and that we think they should support and that we want to see, the town council get behind as well.
So just for the record, whatever, I believe in climate change, okay? I put some electricity in my garage so that I can get a charger. I was looking at the Ford, at one point in time, the Ford F-150 electric, but $70,000 is out of my range. I'm going more towards a hybrid Maverick right now, which I can afford. So that's on my future, but I think I'm perfectly fine, from my opinion, I can't speak for the council, in doing something that says we are, we want to set a goal of being carbon neutral or whatever you want to say, at least generating enough electricity as what we're using to be, I can support that.
Right. Okay, good. Well, again, the other thing that will be important is, getting people to actually, and I'm happy to too. I just won't be able to do it as an official committee member, but I'm happy to, take other things I'm working on to try to continue to help form a plan and give input to.
Well, I could see you continue to be a valuable resource that would say, hey, Pete, we need this, or Pete, we need that. You can,
Yeah.
Tell us
Yeah,
where to
well,
go,
that's
or
been,
get it for us.
my skill set has been to try to help various town entities take a look at the data, make sense of it, and make it easy to use. So,
And again, I want to thank you for all your work.
so that's where we are.
Can I make a suggestion that you volunteer to be the acting chair until we get a couple more people here?
Seeing no one else, I accept.
Seeing the ranking member.
Yes, I'm happy to fill in for as long
All right,
as
so
is
if you
necessary.
want, we have to, I guess we technically should have to vote on that, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You're
what it
making
is.
the motion.
She's making the motion, I'll second the
Oh, I
motion.
thought he
All-
made the
all in
motion.
favor, yay, and you're accepting?
Yay, okay.
All right, so we have a new, at least temporary chair.
Acting chair
Right,
until
and
such time.
I'm gonna continue to try to recruit some committee members.
Now, okay, so the makeup of the committee is supposed to be 4 people from
Right.
at large, 1 from the town council, 1 from the planning board, and 1 from the conservation commission. Do those people ever show up? The
No.
conservation?
I've never seen a
Do
planning
you
board or
want-
conservation
okay.
commission person.
Okay,
Wait.
my take is maybe I should make a suggestion that I go to the town council and ask if they will modify the membership to be like 5 or 6 people at large and 1 from the town council.
Sure, because even if we ended up getting someone from the planning board, they could still fill in as an at-large, right? So it's, that's a fine thing for me.
Yeah.
Can
Can
that
we
be-
not, can we ask, since we just recently had an election, we might ask one last time before doing that, ask the new members of the planning board and the conservation commission?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right.
We
And
have
then
a
if
meeting
nobody's chomping at the bit, then that recommendation to change the requirements would be good.
tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
That may take a month of it, tomorrow's meeting, or tomorrow I'll send a note to Steve saying, can you tell us who these members are, and I'll try contacting them, I'll CC you and you.
Yeah.
I'll keep
Thank you so
I
much.
mean, it may, it may be time for the town council and Steve to rethink about the whole relationship based on the Community Power Coalition and everything else. I'm not sure, just an advisory, obviously I've been committed all my life to sort of issues around energy and environment, but I'm not sure an advisory committee is the most effective way to get things done in town at this point. Because if Newmarket wants to be an effective member of the Community Power Coalition, that's going to require some more dedicated time, effort, and hard work to understand the issues that go in behind that. So I don't have an answer for you as to what the best way to do that is. But
Perhaps we should be a board.
I would think that the committee should, come up with formulate something kind of statement saying, hey, look, this committee is being, the requirements are beyond what this committee can do. What you need is somebody on the planning board or
Right.
whatever, or not the planning board, but probably somebody out of the, you know, the new town, Bart, McDonald there, or whatever his position is there.
Right.
The town planner
Right.
should be part of his group. But
Did
We have a new town planner?
yeah, Bart McDonald.
Okay,
Yeah, Diane retired.
Right.
okay.
And when did that become official?
Last month he
Last month?
officially took over.
So that went, and that was, does that go through a town council approval process?
Yes, the
Yeah.
town council
So you
approved
did,
it.
so that person's in place now?
Yes, he is,
Okay,
yep.
good. All right, I'll have to stop by.
I think that would be something that would be further down the line, or, you know, maybe not too far down the line, but,
Right.
you know, we say, hey, this is getting beyond the capabilities or whatever, you know, this committee can do. And if you want to be seriously about joining this
Right.
coalition, that you need somebody that has to really, you know, think about what are the implications and what
Right.
it is that we have to do.
Mhm. I agree.
It may be that at some point in the future, we would have to be essentially a board instead of an advisory committee. It may be that if we join the coalition, we might actually have to hire staff that has an expertise in this issue. You know, we're all volunteer here, and we just do what we can. And we don't necessarily have, many of us have some expertise, but not necessarily what needs to.
Yeah, but that would have to be, I guess, a recommendation from us to
Right.
move ahead with that, and
So
then
it's a
Steve would have to sit
conversation.
down and say, okay, what are the implications here? And,
Right.
you know, hey, that means hiring people, and, you know, then that becomes a whole nother thing.
A less likely to happen scenario.
I wouldn't say it's less likely to happen, but, you know, if it's serious about committing to, you know, doing things, then
Right.
you have to take a look at, okay, how are we gonna do that? How are we gonna
Right.
get there?
Or it may be just, you know, an as-needed contracted position, like we're hiring someone for a particular phase that has the expertise, but I don't think we can get the expertise we need for some of these things just by asking the general public, because we could barely get people for the general public as it is.
So that's it. That's where we're at.
Okay, so if tomorrow, or when I talk to the council next, we're meeting tomorrow, I'm basically gonna, you know, give them an update on that we met.
I will
They're
share a
aware
link
that
to you so that you have the energy aggregation numbers at your fingertips.
I don't know if I'll get that deep into it.
I'm happy to help you anytime.
Maybe
too,
the
so.
overall, I think
Yeah.
we were shared on some slides from that initial presentation about Community Power Coalition. Maybe that would be more helpful.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be good.
Yeah, I can.
And I'll send you the resolution as well as the associated background information I have on it.
Right.
All right. Well, that was,
Sounds good. Well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
Second?
Okay. Meeting is over.
Well, thank you
very,
for.
well, thank you very much.